For as long as we've existed, humanity has looked to the stars, dreaming of wonder and discovery. But on the morning the collective arrived, that starlit sky became a chilling reminder of our potential doom. I'm Lieutenant Dakota Rivers. I was on the observation deck of Frontier Station Alpha when their ships appeared. Massive, impossibly large vessels materializing from quantum space. I had trained my whole life for this, for humanity's first step into the galactic community. I dreamed of meeting other intelligent species. But as 12 ships, each the size of a cathedral, hung silently above Earth, my dreams turned to dust. They called themselves the Harmony Collective, a federation of 23 species who had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were strange, and in their strangeness, beautiful. The one who spoke for them was High Arbiter Desha. She had the delicate grace of a deer, with silvery white fur that seemed to hold its own light. Her companions were just as alien creatures, like 6-winged swans, walking flowers with petals that shimmered through every color of the rainbow, and others whose forms were simply beyond our understanding. I watched the broadcast from my station as President Helena Ortiz received them in the Grand Assembly of the United Earth Coalition. My hands gripped the railing so hard my knuckles went white. "We come with an offer of peace," Esha began, her voice like music, translated by a small floating device. "Humanity has finally achieved faster-than-light travel. This is a momentous achievement. It is also a dangerous threshold." The entire assembly was silent, holding its breath. Esha continued. "The Harmony Collective was founded 7,000 years ago when our species first met. We discovered a shared truth. All of us had evolved as prey. We knew the terror of being hunted, the constant fear that shaped our ancestors. And when we found each other, we made a sacred vow. Never again would we allow predator species to threaten the peace of the cosmos." Our chief diplomat, Ambassador Wei Chun, stood up, his posture carefully neutral. "Are you suggesting that humanity is being judged based on our evolutionary past? We have evolved beyond our primitive instincts." A swan-like alien glided forward, its wings rustling. "We have observed your species for 3 months, ever since we detected your first FTL signature. We have studied your history, your cultures, your entertainment. You celebrate violence. Your heroes are warriors. Your sports simulate combat. Your economies thrive on competition and domination. You are not reformed predators. You remain hunters at your core." I felt a surge of anger. I switched my comms to the military channel, and it was already exploding. "This is insane." Colonel Benjamin Torres spat from the Mars defense grid. "They're condemning us for biology we can't control." Admiral Patricia, Okonkwo's voice cut through the noise, steady but strained. "Keep the channel clear," she ordered. Back in the assembly, Besha brought up a holographic map of our local space. Earth was at the center, and a sphere of soft red light expanded around it, stopping at a distance I quickly calculated to be about 12 light years. "This is your permitted zone," Besha announced. "Within this boundary, you may colonize suitable worlds. You may develop your technology. You may grow your civilization. But you must not expand beyond these limits. You must accept collective oversight of your military and submit to regular inspections." The room erupted. Shouts of disbelief and anger in dozens of languages filled the air. President Ortiz had to raise her hand for several long minutes before order was restored. "And if we refuse?" she asked, her voice sharp and clear. Desha's large, dark eyes seemed to fill with genuine sadness. "Then you will force us to take preventative action." The hologram shifted. It now showed a different star system, marked in an ominous black. 400 years ago, we encountered the Vraker. They were apex predators from a death world, even more hostile than Earth. They evolved from pack hunters with cunning and intelligence that rivaled your own. When we offered them the same terms we offer you, they refused. They called us weak. They called us prey. The image zoomed in. We saw thousands upon thousands of ships converging on a blue planet. I watched in absolute horror as the planet's surface began to glow, then burn, and crack apart like a shattered egg. We gave them 5 years to reconsider, Desha said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They spent those years building weapons. They launched raids on our colonies. They killed millions of our people, convinced their predator instincts made them superior. We responded with overwhelming force. The Vraker species is now extinct. Their worlds are tomb worlds, monuments to the folly of predatory aggression. The flower-like being spoke next, its petals turning a deep, dark purple. We do not glory in their destruction. We mourned every life lost, even theirs. But the collective will not tolerate threats to the peace we have built. We offer you a choice that the Vraker refused. Choose wisely. President Ortiz stood tall, but I could see her hands trembling. You are asking us to imprison ourselves, to abandon our nature, our dreams of exploring the cosmos. We are asking you to survive, Escher replied. You may have rich lives within your sphere. We will trade with you, share our knowledge. Many species have found contentment within their zones. You could be happy. As pets, someone yelled from the crowd. Desha turned to the voice. As protected members of a peaceful civilization, the alternative is extinction. We have seen what happens when predator species are left unchecked. They conquer. They dominate. They bring war and suffering. We will not allow that to happen again. I switched back to the military channel. Admiral Okonkwo was already giving orders. I want full tactical assessments. Ship counts, weapon capabilities, everything we can gather on their fleet. We have 12 months to understand what we're facing. Colonel Torres's voice was tight with anger. Are we actually considering fighting them? We're considering all options, Okonkwo said. But Colonel, look at those ships. Each one is larger than our biggest station. Their tech is centuries beyond ours. If it comes to war, we need to know exactly how outmatched we are. In the assembly, the alien delegation was leaving. You have 1 Earth year to decide, the High Arbiter stated. We will return for your answer. Use this time wisely. Consult with your people. Search your hearts. We truly hope you will choose peace. After they were gone, President Ortiz stood in the stunned silence. Finally, she spoke. Representatives of Earth, Mars, and the colonies. We face the greatest crisis in human history. Not a disaster, not a war among ourselves, but a test of who we are and who we will become. I am calling an emergency session. Every nation, every settlement, every voice must be heard. We have 12 months to decide the future of our species. I turned from the broadcast and looked out the viewport at the same stars I had always loved. But now they felt different. Somewhere out there, 12 massive ships waited in silent judgment. Humanity had 1 year to prove we deserved to keep reaching for the cosmos, or accept a golden cage built by those who feared the hunter in our hearts. The question was no longer if we could reach the stars. The question was whether we would be allowed to stay. Thank you for watching. If you want to find out what humanity decides, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll be back with the next part of the story soon. The months that followed felt like watching humanity hold its breath. I found myself reassigned to a covert operation so secret, most of Earth's population would never even know it existed. They called it Project Nightfall. The mission was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Learn everything possible about the Harmony Collective before their deadline arrived. I worked alongside Captain Reza Kwan, a brilliant tactical analyst who'd spent his entire career studying theoretical alien combat scenarios. Scenarios everyone had assumed would remain just that theoretical. And then there was Dr. Sienna Oakes, a xenobiologist who went from studying the possibility of alien life to analyzing very real alien physiology overnight. The three of us formed the core of a team operating from a hidden facility deep beneath the lunar surface. It was 3 months into our research when Sienna dropped the first bombshell. During our morning briefing, she projected holographic images of the collective's ships. "Something," she said, "doesn't add up." She pointed at the elegant, flowing designs. "Look at their vessels. The architecture is beautiful, yes, but it's incredibly inefficient for warfare. These ships are designed for intimidation and presence, not actual combat." Riza leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Sienna replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface, "that maybe they're not the unbeatable armada they want us to believe they are." She pulled up footage from their arrival over Earth. "Watch their formation pattern. They arranged themselves in a display formation, not a tactical one. Any military academy student could tell you they left themselves vulnerable to attack from at least 6 different vectors." My own pulse quickened. "Maybe they're just arrogant," I suggested. "Maybe they've gone so long without real opposition that they've forgotten how to fight." "Or maybe," Reza said slowly, the words hanging in the air, "they've never really known how to fight in the first place." We stared at each other as the implications settled over us like a cold blanket. It was Sienna who finally voiced what we were all thinking. What if the Vraker weren't destroyed because the collective was militarily superior? What if there's another explanation? Over the following weeks, we dug deeper. The collective had provided humanity with extensive historical records, part of their so-called cultural exchange, meant to show us the benefits of joining their utopian civilization. But Sienna started finding inconsistencies, gaps in timelines, suspiciously vague descriptions of military victories, references to technologies that seemed far beyond what the collective actually possessed. Then came the breakthrough. A listening post near Jupiter picked up an anomalous signal. It was a tight beam transmission, clearly not meant for human ears. BROADCAST, in a language our computers couldn't translate. But the source was clear. It came from a small vessel hiding in the asteroid belt, and it was broadcasting toward a region of space far beyond the collective's territory. "We need to intercept that ship," I said immediately. "Whatever they're doing out there, it's not official collective business." Admiral Okonkwo approved the mission personally, and soon I was commanding a stealth frigate called the Phantom Protocol. It took us 4 days to track down the mysterious vessel, which turned out to be barely larger than a shuttle. When we finally caught up to it near the orbit of Saturn, what we found changed everything. The pilot was a creature unlike any we'd seen in the collective delegation. It had scales like a reptile and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. When it bared its teeth at my boarding party, I saw rows of sharp, carnivorous fangs. This was a predator, and it wore the insignia of the Harmony Collective on its uniform. As my Marines surrounded it, the creature hissed through a translator, "Don't shoot. Please. I mean you no harm. My name is Korvax, and I have information that could save your species." We brought Korvax back to the lunar facility under maximum security. For 2 days, intelligence officers interrogated the alien, while Reza, Sienna, and I watched from an observation room. What Korvax told them seemed impossible, yet every single detail checked out against the inconsistencies we had already discovered. "The collective is built on a lie," Korvax explained, its reptilian features twisted with what looked like shame, or maybe anger. 7,000 years ago, yes, prey species did form an alliance, but they were not peaceful philosophers creating a utopia. They were terrified refugees, fleeing from predator species who had dominated the galaxy for millions of years before them. Then what happened to the predators? Reza demanded through the intercom. Korvax's eyes glowed brighter. "We didn't disappear. The collective made us disappear. Not through military might, but through something far more insidious. They created a weapon, a biological agent that targets specific genetic markers associated with predatory evolution. Aggression suppressors, sterility triggers. neurological inhibitors that make higher reasoning difficult. They released this weapon on every predator species they encountered. I felt sick to my stomach. The Vraker were the last species to resist before yours, Korvax confirmed. But they weren't destroyed by a fleet. The collective released the bioweapon on their worlds. Within a generation, the Vraker couldn't reproduce. Within 2, they could barely think. The images the collective showed you of burning worlds? Those were the Vraker's own desperate attempts to purge the contamination from their biosphere. It didn't work. And you? Sienna asked softly. Why haven't you been affected? Because some of us submitted, Korvax said bitterly. Species like mine, the Drakari, we accepted collective rule early in their expansion. In exchange for our compliance, they allowed some of us to survive with our faculties intact, but only as servants, spies, enforcers for when prey species need predator skills to do their dirty work. We are slaves, wearing chains made of genetic leverage. They keep samples of the bioweapon keyed to our DNA, ready to release if we ever rebel. The room fell silent. I looked at my colleagues and saw my own horror reflected in their faces. Why tell us this? I finally asked. Why betray your masters? Korvax's laugh was harsh and bitter. They're not my masters, they're my jailers. And because I've been watching humanity, I've seen your art, your stories, your desperate hope for something better. You remind me of what my people were before the collective broke us. I tell you this because you still have time to prepare, and because someone needs to finally stand against them. How do we fight a bioweapon? Reza asked, his tactical mind already racing. You start by understanding that the collective is afraid, Korvax said. They have billions of civilians on thousands of worlds. Their military consists mostly of automated systems and a handful of subjugated predator species, like mine. If you can neutralize their bioweapon, if you can threaten their core worlds, they will negotiate. They have spent 7,000 years becoming soft, believing their own propaganda. They have forgotten that prey animals only thrive when predators allow it. I made my decision in that moment. We need to take this to the president. All of it. Within hours, Korvax's testimony was being delivered to the highest levels of Earth's government. President Ortiz convened an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. And for the first time since the collective's arrival, I saw a flicker of hope in the eyes of Earth's leaders. They wanted to make us afraid, Ortiz said, her voice laced with steel. They wanted us to believe we were helpless, that submission was our only option. But fear is a weapon that only works on prey. And as they so kindly reminded us, we are predators. General Nathan Cross, commander of the Unified Space Forces, stepped forward. Madame President, we have 8 months until the deadline. If we're going to fight, we need to start preparing now. Not just militarily, but scientifically. We need to reverse engineer their bioweapon, develop countermeasures, and do it all without the collective knowing we're onto them. Then we'll do it, Ortiz said simply. Humanity didn't crawl out of caves and reach for the stars by accepting cages. We've been tested before. We faced extinction events, plagues, wars, disasters. Every time, we survived because we refused to give up. The collective thinks they know what predators are. They think we're mindless beasts driven by violence. She paused, looking around the room at the assembled representatives of humanity's might and wisdom. Let's show them what human predators really are. We're the species that turned cooperation into an art form. We're the hunters who learned to work in packs, to plan, to adapt, to turn every setback into a lesson. They want to see predators? We'll show them what apex predators look like when you back them into a corner. I felt something stirring in my chest, a fierce pride mixed with raw determination. Around the world, humanity was about to stop being afraid and start being dangerous. The collective had made a critical error. They had given humanity a deadline instead of just attacking. They had shown their hand instead of keeping their true weakness hidden. And most of all, They had forgotten the most important lesson that every prey species should know. Never, ever give a cornered predator time to think. Thanks for watching. If you want to see what happens next in this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. The next 5 months transformed humanity in ways that no war or crisis had ever achieved. Every nation, every colony, every settlement from Earth to the outer mining stations united behind a single purpose. Not conquest or domination, but survival with dignity intact. Dakota stood in the command center of what had been designated Sanctuary Station, a massive complex built in secret within the rings of Saturn. Around her, thousands of scientists, engineers, soldiers, and strategists from every corner of human civilization worked in synchronized harmony. The irony was not lost on her. The collective had called humans fractious predators, incapable of cooperation. Yet here they were, proving that predators could work together better than any prey species had imagined. Dr. Sienna Oakes approached, exhaustion written across her features, but her eyes burned with triumph. We've done it. The countermeasure is ready. We can neutralize their bioweapon. How certain are you? Dakota asked, though she already knew Sienna wouldn't have made the announcement without being absolutely sure. We tested it on samples Korvax provided. The bioweapon is sophisticated, but it has a weakness. It requires a specific delivery mechanism, a carrier virus that the collective has been spreading through their cultural exchange programs. The medical supplies they offered us, the food shipments, even the air recyclers they wanted to install on our stations. All of it was contaminated. Dakota felt a cold fury wash through her. They were already poisoning us. They were preparing the ground, Sienna confirmed. But now we have a vaccine. More than that, we have a counteragent that can break down their bioweapon at the molecular level. We can protect ourselves, and we can potentially free the enslaved predator species throughout collective space. Captain Reza Kwan joined them, his usual serious expression softened by something that looked almost like joy. The fleet is ready. Every functional ship we have, plus 300 new vessels built in crash construction programs. We're not going to match their numbers, but we don't need to. We just need to make them believe we can hurt them badly enough that negotiation becomes preferable to conflict. It's more than ships, added General Nathan Cross, who had been overseeing military preparations. We've weaponized everything we learned from Korvax. The collective species are biologically adapted to low-stress environments. Loud noises cause them physical pain. Rapid temperature changes induce shock responses. Their large eyes, evolved for detecting predators, are extremely sensitive to certain light frequencies. We've built weapons specifically designed to exploit every vulnerability they have. Dakota looked around at the faces of her colleagues, these people who had worked themselves to exhaustion for months, and she saw something beautiful. Not hatred or bloodlust, but determined compassion. They were fighting not to destroy, but to be free. Fighting not because they loved violence, but because they loved their future too much to surrender it. President Ortiz's image appeared on the main display, broadcasting from Earth. The deadline is tomorrow. High Arbiter Vesha has sent word that she and her delegation will arrive to receive our answer. Dakota, your team has done extraordinary work. Now comes the hardest part. We need to make them understand. The next morning, Dakota stood beside President Ortiz in the same assembly hall where the collective had first delivered their ultimatum. But this time, things were different. Hidden in orbit were humanity's defensive fleets. Encoded in every human's bloodstream was the vaccine against the bioweapon. And most importantly, standing beside the human delegation was Korvax, along with representatives from 6 other predator species who had secretly reached out to humanity over the past months, daring to hope for freedom. When Vesha and her delegation entered, Dakota saw the moment they noticed Korvax. The High Arbiter's graceful composure cracked, her large eyes widening with what could only be fear. What is the meaning of this? Vesha demanded, her melodic voice carrying sharp edges now. Korvax is a registered servant of the collective. He has no authority to be here. Korvax is a person, not property, President Ortiz said calmly. And he has taught us a great deal about the collective's true nature, about the bioweapon you intended to use on us, about the lies your civilization has built itself upon. The flower-like being's petals turn dark red. You understand nothing. We have maintained peace for 7,000 years. You have maintained control, Ortiz corrected. There is a difference. You looked at humanity and saw only predators. You saw our capacity for violence and assumed that was all we were. But you missed something crucial. You missed what makes human predators different from any others in the galaxy. Reza stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed images from throughout human history. Humans are persistence hunters. We evolved not by being the fastest or the strongest, but by being the most adaptable and the most cooperative. We learned to work in groups, to plan across generations, to turn our environment into an ally. Yes, we hunted, but we also nurtured. We built communities. We created art and music and philosophy. We learned to see beyond ourselves. Sienna added her voice. You claim prey species are more peaceful, but your own history contradicts this. Prey animals in nature are territorial, aggressive toward outsiders, quick to panic and stampede. They survive through fear and withdrawal. Predators, on the other hand, must be intelligent, must be patient, must understand their environment deeply. Humans took those predator traits and combined them with empathy, with imagination, with the ability to see ourselves in others. Dakota watched Desha's expression shift from anger to uncertainty. You came to Earth expecting to find monsters, Dakota said. But what you actually found was a species that has already done what you claim is impossible. We have turned our predatory nature into something beautiful. We compete, yes, but we compete to build, to discover, to create. We have the capacity for violence, but we choose cooperation. Not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to make that choice. Korvax stepped forward, his reptilian features set with determination. I was born into slavery, raised to believe that predators were inherently inferior to prey species. But I have seen what humanity has built. A civilization that honors both strength and compassion. That celebrates diversity while maintaining unity. That reaches for the stars not to conquer, but to explore. They are what we could have been if the collective had not broken us. You cannot fight us, Desha said, but her voice wavered. We have thousands of ships, billions of citizens. If you resist, we will be forced to respond. President Ortiz smiled, and there was something fierce in that expression. High Arbiter, we have no desire to fight you. But understand this clearly. We will not accept your cage. We have neutralized your bioweapon. We have fleets hidden throughout this system. We have allies among the species you have enslaved. And most importantly, we have something your civilization has forgotten. We have the will to risk everything for freedom. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show not weapons or ships, but images from Earth. Children playing in parks. Artists creating sculptures. Scientists making discoveries. Families gathered around dinner tables. This is what you threaten to destroy. This is what we fight for. Not conquest or domination, but the simple right to grow, to explore, to become whatever we choose to be. We could destroy your worlds. The swan-like being said, but its wings trembled with uncertainty. You could try, General Cross acknowledged, but it would cost you dearly. Every ship you lose would be one less defender for your core worlds. Every casualty would shake the foundation of your civilization. Your people have lived in peace for millennia. Are they ready to sacrifice millions of lives to enforce your dominance? Are you ready to explain to them why prey must die to keep predators caged? The assembly hall fell silent. Dakota could see the internal struggle playing across Disha's features. Finally, the High Arbiter spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you propose?" "Partnership," Ortiz said simply. "Not submission, not dominance, but genuine cooperation. We stay within our agreed boundaries for now, but as equals, not prisoners. You allow your enslaved predator species to choose their own paths. We share technology, culture, and knowledge freely. And together, we build something new. A civilization that makes room for both predator and prey, that recognizes that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker." "This is impossible," Thisha said, but Dakota heard the hope creeping into her voice. 7,000 years of tradition cannot be overturned. 7,000 years of fear, Korvax said gently. 7,000 years of looking over your shoulder, wondering when the next predator threat would emerge. We offer you something different. Imagine a galaxy where prey species do not fear, because they have allies strong enough to stand beside them. Where predator species do not hunt, because they have found better purposes for their strength. Where cooperation is not forced through oppression, but chosen through mutual respect. The flower-like being spoke, its petals shifting through confused colors. "And if we refuse? If we insist on enforcing your original terms?" Dakota answered, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's resolve. "Then you will find that cornered predators fight with a desperation prey species cannot imagine. We will make you pay for every world, every life, every dream you try to take from us. We will show you that the greatest predators are not those who hunt for food, but those who fight for what they love. And in the end, even if you win, your civilization will be so damaged, so traumatized by the cost, that your 7,000 years of peace will be revealed as the fragile illusion it always was." The room held its breath. Vesha looked at her fellow delegates, then back at the humans before her. Finally, she spoke words that would echo through history. "We need time to consult with the collective council. This is not a decision we can make alone. Take the time you need," Ortiz said, "but know this. Humanity is no longer asking for permission to reach for the stars. We are offering you the chance to reach them with us. Together, we could build something greater than either of us could achieve alone. A civilization that honors both the cautiousness of prey and the courage of predators. A galaxy where strength serves wisdom and wisdom guides strength." As the collective delegation departed, Dakota felt tears streaming down her face, and she was not ashamed. Around her, hardened soldiers and brilliant scientists embraced, their relief and pride mixing into something transcendent. They had faced the abyss and chosen to build a bridge across it instead of falling in. Korvax approached Dakota, his reptilian features showing an expression she had learned to recognize as gratitude. "Whatever happens now, you have given us something we thought was lost forever. Hope. The hope that predators can be more than what prey fears. That we can be partners, protectors, friends." Dakota clasped his scaled hand. "We gave each other hope. You reminded us that submission is not survival. That choosing freedom, even at terrible risk, is what makes life worth living." That night, as humans across Earth and the colonies celebrated, Dakota stood once more at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. They still called to her with promises of wonder, but now those promises felt within reach again. Not because humanity had won a war, but because they had won something far more important. They had won the right to define themselves, to grow on their own terms, to show the galaxy that being predators did not mean being monsters. And perhaps most importantly, they had reminded the prey species of the collective of a truth forgotten over 7 millennia. That sometimes the most dangerous predators are not those who hunt without thinking, but those who think deeply about everything worth protecting. The deadline had passed, but instead of ending in destruction, it had opened a door to possibilities no one had imagined. And humanity, those supposedly dangerous predators, had chosen to walk through that door with compassion, strength, and an unshakable belief that the future belonged to those brave enough to build it together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. See you next time.